talk a little bit about your racing this past weekend too.
Yeah, speaking of getting not on dirt bikes, I was on four wheels. But
yeah, I know that. But we'll wait till the official part of the show starts.
Yeah. Getting outside. Yeah, I like the dirt bike theory. It makes a lot of sense. Good time to be selling dirt bikes and guns.
Henry, didn't you had that knee surgery though? I don't know that a dirt bike would be good for you after having had that knee surgery.
I tell you what, my family had some horrific accidents on two wheels, so the Payne motto is four wheels all the time.
How's everything going at work with everybody working remotely? Based on the feedback I've gotten talking to people, is everyone's amazed at how much work's actually getting done.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case for us, John. We've been really surprised, and one of the things our team is doing is we look at all of our productivity metrics, like how many design releases are we pushing out every week, what's our rate of closure of open issues, and we've actually seen an increase in productivity since we've been out. It's been going on 3 months, maybe a little bit longer. So in fact, one of the things we're looking at is how much of the work really needs to be done in the office going forward, and is that an opportunity for us to, as we're doing our campus transformation.
Yeah, don't need that train station anymore.
No, we're not putting that up for sale. But as you can imagine, with social distancing, the density within the office buildings will change. So for the same number of buildings that you had before, you're going to have fewer people. So trying to really understand what work needs to be on site when is going to be helpful as we do that planning.
Yeah, I was. I don't know how much of this you want to save for the show, John, but I was talking to the Corvette race team a couple of days ago, which won down in Daytona, and they did everything virtually until the point where they actually had to get into the office and apply it to the car. But they did all their simulator stuff. They sent drivers down in North Carolina. All the engineers stayed up here, just fed the simulator all their electronic changes to the car, and the drivers drove the car with the mechanical changes before they actually made it to the car. So there's so much that's electronic in this world to begin with. I know you guys do a lot of the virtual headset stuff.
Yeah, we're using virtual reality. We're certainly using our simulator in North Carolina, not only for motorsports, but for production car development as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can get into that a little bit, Hal, because I know when we were talking all about the Mach E last fall out of the LA Auto Show, that was one of the things that was talked about, how much development was done in simulation.
Yes, yep, both analytically as well as with the physical simulator. Design reviews now we're all doing, with virtual reality, and so clay modelers are, going to be extinct at some point.
Yeah. I've talked to or interviewed designers at two other car companies who told me their designers are turning in the best work they've ever turned in, working from home.
Yeah, I can believe it. It's been really good, and we've over-indexed on communications. So all the way up to Jim Hackett, Jim Farley, and the senior leadership teams. We're having weekly all-employee virtual meetings, which in the past they maybe would hear from the senior leadership team once a quarter or something. Now it's happening weekly. So in many ways, we're getting much better feedback from our employees. We do a pulse survey, which measures employee sentiment, and our numbers are the best they've been in over a decade.
Wow. Amazing. That's amazing. It is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm much less productive not seeing Gary and John on the road. So it's not doing me any good.
I'm just sad, Henry, that I don't see you on the road. The productivity hasn't changed. It's a sadness.
Yeah, the periods of depression are intense, Gary.
Hey, Katie, I think we're probably ready to go live. This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy and Gary Vasilash, episode 515 for July 9th of 2020, Design for Domination, how Ford developed the new F-150. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion, and by BorgWarner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Gary, hello out there.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, really well. I'm just in a great mood today.
Missed last week's show because the holiday, and so it seems like a long time since we've been doing this.
It does, but I don't know. This hour is going to go by very quickly. We got a great show coming in today.
It will, and so our journalistic colleague that we'll be introducing here in a moment, I found something that happened on this day in 1976 that brought him to mind in certain ways. A gentleman by the name of Gerald Hoagland drove on a 3/8 mile track 501 miles in reverse. Took him 17 hours and 38 minutes. So without further ado, our friend Henry Payne from the Detroit News.
Hey guys, I love that. I was not aware of that record.
So
Henry, you got something to shoot for.
Yeah, absolutely. In reverse for 501 miles. I wonder what what kind of car was it he was in?
A 69 Impala.
Wow, it was a manual, presumably.
I don't know. So I was trying to run down information on this guy because I saw this, and I found it was in a physics textbook for high school students, presumably, and they were asking a question about, if the guy was going backward for this long, and if he wanted to go forward, how long would it take? But anyway, so it did apparently happen.
Yeah, I got to, a lot of these companies do testing down at Honda's Oval, right, in Ohio. Well, if they ask them if they've had any requests to go 500 miles in reverse.
When I read that, I was thinking about, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Remember when they ran the Ferrari backwards to try to get the odometer to go back?
Yeah, that's right. The old odometer trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Henry, you're back to racing. You were down in Mid-Ohio this last weekend, right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was there 2 weeks ago, and the professional guys really opened up last weekend with NASCAR and IndyCar at Daytona, and IMSA was doing, in Indianapolis, and IMSA was down in Daytona. Corvette got its first win with that mid-engine car. So a lot going on last weekend. And I was out for the first time 2 weeks ago in Mid-Ohio with Trans Am, Formula 3, and Formula 4. So it was quite a weekend. It was very exciting. Great to be back out on track. I've done a lot of iRacing during the shutdown, and nothing compares to being on asphalt again.
I'll bet. Hey, let's bring in our special guest for today because we got a lot to ask him about. Hello, Thai-Tang.
Hi, John. Hello, Gary.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I love the title, Designed for Domination.
Well, I had to look it up, but I think the F-150 has been the best-selling vehicle in America since 1981. That's pretty dominant, and I'm sure that was foremost in your mind as you guys went about developing the new, all-new F-150, that this thing had to remain as number one or you blew it.
That's right. I mean, it's the crown jewels of the company. It pays for all of our paychecks. You've seen some of the stats around how much revenue it generates. It's more than a lot of the Fortune top companies. So we really wanted to maintain the leadership position and build on the great success it's had in the marketplace for 43 years.
So
it's like a small country in terms of the GDP that you guys are getting from that vehicle.
Yeah, medium-sized country. Yep.
I want to say that the official number is it generates around $42 billion in revenue a year, making it bigger than Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Nike, and companies like that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it just really reinforces the significance. And then if you look at the multiplier effect when you get into the supply base and other, adjacent industries, it's typically, we think it's like a 7-time multiplier. So huge impact to the U.S. economy and GDP.
Hey,
Okay,
Hal. Yeah,
sorry, go
Hal,
ahead, Henry.
Yeah, I'm interested. You guys put in place these product plans, 5-6 years in advance. So much has changed in the pickup segment in just the last two. I mean, you've seen unprecedented entries from new folks like Lordstown Motors down to the south of us. You've seen this wild truck come out of Silicon Valley with the Tesla Cybertruck. Has your perspective changed at all in the last 2 years, or did you feel like you baked in everything you needed to in the last during this product cycle?
Yeah, Henry. So certainly there's been a lot of activity. I think when we started the initial planning for the program, this generation of the F-150, there wasn't a lot of these new competitors were not in the marketplace or haven't announced anything. So we'd seen things like the Bollinger product, and we heard people were working on some trucks, but certainly when we were designing the truck, we didn't see the Cybertruck, the Lordstown truck, Lordstown motor, they weren't out yet. So, historically, this segment, the customers have been very conservative. Every time we do market research, they would tell us, don't change it. We love it the way it is. It's like a trusted tool. And if you listen to that literally, the design would be very evolutionary. And I think some of the new entries, they're clearly trying to be much more provocative. They're trying to move the goalposts a little bit. And to be honest, they're targeting a different customer. We know they're not, F-150 customers, Ram customers, Silverado customers probably are not going to be cross-shopping some of those products. So I certainly understand what they're doing, but I think the good news for us is it's going to open up customers' expectations in terms of acceptance of new designs, and it'll give us more freedom to do things. So I think it's good. It shows you that in this hyper-competitive industry, if you are making a lot of money, people don't let you do that forever.
Yeah.
Hal, I've got to ask. So for the 2015 model, I mean, you guys, that was the aluminum pickup truck that just was truly revolutionary. For the new truck, how new is new?
Yeah. So Gary, as you mentioned, in 2015 or the 2015 model year, we launched it in 2014. We made a significant change. It was a completely all new architecture for us, high strength steel frame, the aluminum upper body. We launched it with the EcoBoost engine, and we felt like we had all of the fundamental ingredients in place. And with this truck, what we really wanted to do was build on that really strong foundation. So yes, the exterior is new, the design has evolved, but a lot of our features were, our idea was to build on the capability of that truck, those underpinnings, and really make this the smartest truck ever. So you'll see a lot of emphasis on new technology, connectivity, having the hybrid power pack, having innovative first to market features like the Pro Power on board, and then a lot of the emphasis was on the interior of the vehicle, and then smart technology like driver assisted technology, the Sync 4 platform, having the over-the-air updates, so an all-new electrical architecture. And I'd like to spend some time talking with you guys about some of those things, because I think it's game-changing in terms of what it's going to do for our customers.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that OTA stuff. Hal, I own a Tesla. The thing literally updates like my smartphone every couple of months. I mean, they bring a lot of content in. Are you guys expecting to do similar thing? You'll be doing major updates?
Yeah, small, minor updates as well as incremental new features. It's in our plan. And so, Henry, firsthand, your Tesla is better today than when you drove it off the lot.
Yeah,
that's pretty much game changing in the auto industry, right? For the longest time, the adage was as soon as you drive your car off the showroom, it starts to depreciate, and that's no longer the case. And you've heard Jim Hackett talk about smart vehicle and a smart world, and this is really it coming home to roost. And the light bulb went off for me when in the early days of Jim's tenure, he took us on a trip to do some benchmarking. We went to Microsoft and we met with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, and his leadership team. And in the conversation, Satya said to us, he said, "Did you know that Google makes more money on every PC than Microsoft does?" And we kind of shook our head. Intellectually, we understood. He said, no, you don't understand the significance of that. He said, what it really meant is the business model has changed from a transaction model, right? He said the Microsoft that Bill Gates founded, that Steve Ballmer ran, that I inherited, our premise was we would sell the operating system on the PC, Microsoft Windows, and the Microsoft Office suite. And he said, that's how we organize ourselves. That's how we measure our success. He said, but as soon as a customer buys that PC, goes home, fires up Windows, gets on the internet using Microsoft Explorer, he said every time they would do a search, Google would monetize the ad traffic. And for the life of that device, they would actually make more money than Microsoft. He said, so the learning for you guys is the business model changes from a transaction model. You buy a truck and we hope you come back in 6 years and buy another one, to now you have a continuous relationship with that customer. You're able to provide them with enhanced value, and then you can monetize that. So for us, this is a huge investment, and it's going to be game changing in terms of what we'll be able to do for our customers, but also it represents a shift in the business model for us.
Yeah,
that's
a
fascinating point. Yeah, where do you see opportunities for monetizing it? I mean, some things you're just going to update because the truck needs it. Maybe it's emissions related or something like that. But how do you see the monetization being enabled?
Yeah, so we actually see it in 4 different distinct buckets. The first one is, as you said, it's going to be continuous improvement. Each time you identify an issue, you can flash an update and continue to refine the vehicle. That's going to build customer satisfaction and loyalty. The second category will be services that we think customers would be willing to pay for, and it could be a one-time download, it could be for a new feature, or it could be a subscription payment. So there's different models for that. So, and you've seen, we mentioned Tesla. Tesla is piloting this, right? You can now pay monthly subscription for autopilot, for example. The third category would be internal benefits for Ford. So it's no secret we've struggled with warranty costs. Part of the issue is, when we find a defect, the exposure in terms of the number of vehicles impacted is very high. A latched recall can go across to 100,000 vehicles or more. Now we have the opportunity to identify those issues much faster and then cut off the exposure. So that's one benefit. In many cases, we can do an over-the-air update, and you don't physically have to bring the car back to the dealership and incur the cost of paying a technician to service that vehicle. So that's a secondary benefit. So we see a lot of enterprise benefits. Another one is optimizing the product feature offering. So right now we have a lot of debates around, are customers willing to use XYZ feature? My favorite one is, my wife drives her Ford Flex and it has paddle shifters. I've asked her, do you ever use them? She's like, I have no idea what they are, and I think I pulled on it once by mistake and something happened, right? So right now, a lot of those debates around the product feature offering, it becomes very subjective. It's somebody's opinion. Now we can actually poll the vehicles, and I can tell you how many Ford Flex customers actually use that feature, and we can make an informed decision to optimize the product offering. So that's another example of an enterprise benefit. The last category is, by knowing how you use your vehicle, I can basically tailor the product offering to you and potentially upsell you or cross-sell you to a different solution. And this is really key for truck customers, where we can recognize their use patterns and we can basically come back to them and say, maybe this other truck is better suited for your needs, or maybe in some cases you're overbuying. And so that's how we think about the different value bins, and we have them aligned to these 4 categories, and we have the teams organized to basically go after those 4 bins of value creation.
How the one of the things you're introducing with this truck is a self-drive capability. It sounds like you're geofencing, similar to what Tesla and GM are doing with their Super Cruise. I'm sitting here waiting on my Tesla right now. It's supposed to update so that the car sees stoplights as part of its autonomous. I assume that area is going to be a huge area of OTA for you.
Yes, in fact, that's one of the features that we will be updating over the year post job one, is this highway assist feature. So we're really excited about it. It's going to give the customers the ability to drive hands off while they keep their eyes on the road. And unlike other systems, including what's in your Tesla, where they're reliant on just steering wheel torque that some people may be able to circumvent. You've seen videos on YouTube of people sticking water bottles in there and those types of things. We actually have a camera inside the vehicle that's monitoring the driver's eyes and gesture, so we'll know if you're distracted or if you're nodding off and falling asleep, and we can intervene.
All right, so I want to talk about the truck. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. All right, so here's a truck that you guys are offering 6 different powertrains for, including a hybrid. So I mean, this I believe is going to be the first pickup truck to be powered by a hybrid. Talk to us about that and how you see. I mean, you said earlier that a lot of the truck customers are very conservative and reticent to make change. How are they going to take to this new technology?
Yeah. So Gary, they are conservative about exterior design. I want to clarify. We found that they're actually very tech savvy. So we know when we went from a V8 engine to a V6 EcoBoost, there was a lot of angst amongst many people in the industry. Are truck customers going to embrace this? And it's been really successful. It's our best-selling, engine by far. The same thing when we went from steel to high-strength aluminum. There was a lot of angst, and they've adopted that because they could see the benefits. And we think the hybrid will do the same. So in this space, it's all about. We talk about the 4 Ps. It's not the 4 Ps that they teach you in business school. It's power, productivity, payload, and performance. And we know with the hybrid, we're going to be able to enhance all 4 of those elements. So it'll have really good power. You'll be able to leverage the instant torque of the electrified power pack to get great launches. That's going to have good torque, good towing. And then in terms of productivity, 700 miles of range we're predicting. Fewer stops to fill up. And then the ability to have this Pro Power on demand, power on board. This is fantastic. One of the things we've been doing, under Jim Hackett's leadership, is a lot of work around human-centered design thinking, spending time with our customers. We've observed that many of our customers tow or haul in the bed of the truck a generator. They either tow a big generator, like an Ingersoll Rand generator, the ones that show up to your house to blow out your sprinklers, or they'll have a Honda generator in the back of the truck. I have a Honda generator. The thing weighs about 300 pounds. So, getting it into the truck is a lot of work, and then it takes up precious space, cargo space, plus it uses up payload, and it's loud. So now you can tap into the power anywhere from 2 kilowatts up to 7.2 kilowatts, which is, a high-end Honda generator to power your work site. Another great insight we learned is many communities, there are noise ordinances. So if a work crew is out working at your home, after a certain hour, they can't run that generator because of local noise ordinances. That means for that business owner, he has to send that crew back the next day. Whereas now, if he's able to run on that quiet power that we have in our truck, they can finish the job, stay an extra hour or 2 and finish the job and not have to return to that site the next day. That's another example of productivity. So these are the areas of focus for us, really smart, ingenious solutions to improve the productivity of our truck owners.
So to explain that a little bit, so there are, you guys have outlets that are in the box that that people are able to plug into. And so you run the engine. So whether this is the hybrid or any of the other engines that you have on offer, that they're able to get power that way. Is that, I mean, that's what this is about?
That's correct. The Pro Power on board is available. The two kilowatt option is available on 3 of our gasoline engine power packs. So the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, as well as the 5 liter V8. And then if you get the hybrid, it comes with a 2.4 kilowatt option or an optional 7.2 kilowatt option.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What's the life like for that generator?
It's not a generator. It's the battery pack. So it should last the life of the truck, and it'll be covered as part of our powertrain warranty, which is typically 10 years, 100,000 miles.
Yeah, I'm just talking about for a particular application. I mean, if you're running a gas generator, it's going to run out of gas. How long would would this last?
This will run all day long because it's leveraging the battery plus the engine in the car, in the truck. So yeah, it's a typical generator will run. I know my Honda generator I have to fill it up maybe every 8 hours if it's running on load. And this will run, longer than that.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, how I didn't realize that you can get that on the non-hybrid versions. And we're looking at this great video clip right now of how you've also repurposed the tailgate so it can be a workplace, for sawing, and you've got little cubby holes for storing things like pencils and your cell phone. Are these ideas that came out of your whole customer-focused design approach?
Yep, John, absolutely. Those are all examples of what the audience is seeing of us, spending time with our customers and watching how they work. One of the things that we really try to focus on are workarounds. So when we see them pull out a bungee cord or, some kind of workaround, we recognize that this is a pain point that we can address and fix for the customer. So on the tailgate, creating a workstation with a tailgate, but also things like being able to clamp. We put clamp pockets in so that they can use the tailgate and use that as a fence to basically have a miter saw and clamp down their workspace, as an example. Putting in, things like tape measures, having a stand for their phone or their iPad. Those are all examples. Inside the vehicle, a lot of our truck customers basically use it as an office. So when they get to the site or at the end of the job, they're in there writing up a quote, writing up the receipt. So creating a workspace there. And the key innovation there was having an electronic shifter that folds out of the way. To enable that.
You got to explain that. I mean, that's just. I mean, just to see it fold, it's amazing. I mean, how does that work?
So it's electronics, man.
Here's the tension: is truck owners say, "I want a physical shifter." They said, "I don't want a knob. I don't want push buttons. I want a physical shifter." But then at the same time, if you have that physical shifter there, you can't fold down and create a flat workspace. So the team, because it is an electronic shifter, came up with this ingenious design where the shifter actually folds flat out of the way when you're in park, and then it enables that flat work surface. So it's another example of a really ingenious solution.
I think that's an important point, that because a lot of people have seen that video clip that Katie just ran and said, why didn't they just put in a rotary knob? You're saying your customers don't want rotary knobs.
Our customers don't want a rotary knob. They tell us that they like the physical haptics of being able to grab onto that shifter. They also, some say, I drive and I rest my hand on it. So that was a key design want for us.
Yeah, and they didn't want a column shifter either, I take it.
They didn't want a column shifter either, yep.
And how'd you come up with the idea for these seats that lay flat?
Well, even pre-COVID, our customers would tell us that they rest in their truck. So, oftentimes you're at a job site, you may have an hour lunch break, they'll eat and take a little power nap. Some customers tell us, when I get home, I actually like to decompress in the truck before I go back in the house. And it's going to be a lot easier to sneak home and rest in your truck with a hybrid because your wife doesn't know that you're home yet. We said, what if we gave you, a flat recline seat? And that scored really well in our market research. So we came up with this idea of this seat. So Max Recline, I think, is the marketing name for it, as Gary.
Hal, I think I got. There must have been one of my racing buddies who was on your one of your marketing panels, because he'll rent a Ford. What's a big Ford? Navigator, Expedition.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll rent an Expedition so he can go to the track and lay down in the back. That's where he'll sleep. He'll just camp at the track and sleep in the back. But he's a pickup guy, so now he can get his pickup truck, and throw all the stuff that race guys like to throw into the pickup bed, and then he can still sleep in it because you got this 180 degrees. So it makes a lot of sense.
More comfortable in this truck for sure. Yes.
All right, Hal, I've got to ask you this question. Okay, you're a product development guy. You've been doing this for a long time. And when I think about what you guys did in terms of the tailgate and the cleats in the box and so on, I mean, how come this hasn't been thought of a long time ago?
If Jim Hackett was here, he would say that we weren't really practicing human-centered design. And I think, there's a lot of people that may say, well, of course, if they're not designing for humans, who are they designing for, right, all this time? But it's really, the approach is not doing traditional focus groups and asking people what they want because, as Henry Ford said, they would say a faster horse. It's spending time observing how people use your products and looking for these workarounds and these pain points, and then using that as the source of ideation. And then the other big thing is doing very rapid, non-precious prototypes. So the concepts we come up with are cardboard, they're foam core, and we show it to customers. We get feedback, we iterate and refine, and we encourage the teams to fail fast and learn. And then that way you're not only more nimble and agile, but you also don't psychologically fall in love with the solution because you spent millions of dollars developing it. So there's a lot of benefits there.
I want to get into more details on that, but we've got to take a quick break right now. We'll be back in just a moment, but first, a shout out to our good friends at BorgWarner.
The world is changing at an ever-increasing pace. No matter what the mode of transportation, there is always the need for an efficient propulsion system. And that's exactly what BorgWarner has been doing since the earliest days of the automotive industry. We create innovative mobility technologies that reduce energy consumption and emissions while improving performance. Our proven track record has made us an industry leader in forward-looking propulsion solutions for combustion, hybrid, and electric vehicles.
All right, we're back with Hal Thai-Tang, the head of all product development and purchasing at the Ford Motor Company. We were just talking about customer-centric design. I'm curious how, you've come up with some cool features, and they truly are cool. But what I'm wondering is, has that process accelerated your product development process? Has it gotten you more sharp in terms of coming out with products people really want? And most importantly, can you take cost out of the process by using this approach?
Yes to all of those things. So, we're being much more agile, as we talked before the break. We're testing and iterating with non-precious prototypes, so we're able to go really fast. If I look at our traditional way of working, our global product development system versus some of these new programs, we're seeing somewhere between 20 to 30% reduction in terms of time, speed to market,
Wow.
as well as the engineering cost that's associated with it. And then, time will tell, but we're finding that we have more clever, ingenious solutions that we're able to claim being first to market with. So I think that will pay dividends in terms of customer satisfaction as well as market share gains and pricing power.
So to that point, and this is something we can talk about. And John, you remember last fall we were in the product development center, and they were taking us to show us the Mustang Mach E, and one of the examples was, designing the screen for the interior, and that they gave, they had done a bunch of, quick mock-up sorts of things. And is that what you're talking about here?
Exactly, Gary. And what, I don't know if you recall, but still one of my favorite examples was we went to the research and we had a cardboard mock-up of this tablet, and the customers told us, I still want a physical button. I like the haptics, especially if I want to change the volume real fast. I don't want to fumble around on the touch screen or have a slider bar. And the team actually mocked one up using a used Keurig coffee pod and a rubber band.
That's right.
And so that's an example of a non-precious prototype. We put that back in front of that customer and they said, this is perfect. You know, they were twirling this coffee pod around inside a foam core box pad, and that became the inspiration for the execution on the Mach-E. I think, you know, one of the things that you guys recognize, but many of the viewers may not, is the gestation period in our industry is, you know, 3 to 4 years for a new product. So Jim Hackett's been with Ford, you know, roughly that period of time. So the products that are coming to market now, the new F-150, the Bronco family, the Mach-E, they're really the first products to benefit from this approach. So it's great for us to be able to finally showcase what we've been talking about for the past few years.
I like this idea of the non-precious prototype, and you know that you guys are willing to do stuff with cardboard and you know, Keurig pods. You know, where did that thinking come from? I mean, was it something that was there all along and it took somebody like Jim Hackett to release it, or was this something else that caused you guys to start thinking that way? Because, you know, I think a lot about, okay, everyone's talking about doing, you know, 3D printed things that look exactly like the real deal will, which, you know, strikes me as probably being a precious prototype, or people spending a lot of time doing things, you know, in CAD, which again, a lot of investment, time, effort, energy. But, you know, cardboard, foam core, I mean,
yeah.
How did that thinking change?
I think, Gary, in the past, we had this belief that if the item you're testing or doing market research with didn't look exactly like the real thing, that you couldn't believe the results. So whether that's customer interest or how much they're willing to pay for it. So therefore, we would spend a lot of money to do these, you know, one-off prototypes that, you know, cost millions of dollars in some cases if it's a full inside-outside model of a vehicle, to try to replicate and simulate the final production product. Jim, while he was at Steelcase, you know, fell in love with this company on the West Coast, IDEO, you know, a product design company, so much that he ended up buying the company. Steelcase owned it at one time. They've since sold it. But Jim learned from that experience this idea of design thinking, customer observation, you know, rapid iterations with non-precious prototypes, the refinement loops. And he brought that to Ford. And he said, you know, don't worry about the precision of trying to replicate the final end product. Use this to really test and learn. And then, you know, the real value are these fast iterative design loops.
How, you know, you talk about this, just how much technology has changed everything. I mean, that's kind of dominated our conversation. But there's also passion points for customers where they like old technology. I mean, you ask any auto journalist, they want to know how many cars still have manual shifters, for example. One of your other icons is Mustang. You guys brought out the Mach 1 this year. I've heard from a lot of guys about asking, where's the shaker? You know, why doesn't it have a shaker? And you talk to the engineers and they say, we don't need shakers anymore. I mean, the ability to drive airflow now through the front end, you don't need these additional costs like shakers. How do you balance that passion versus the technology that's at your fingertips?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. You know, we have to recognize that technology is advancing. So there are some things that are, you know, relevant. You know, carburetors. You know, when I worked in Indy cars, we still had carburetor day on, you know, the Thursday, the week before the race, even though they're all fuel injections. So we think, again, especially for these truck customers, they're very technologically savvy. They want to know how they can be more productive. So whether it's, you know, switching over to lithium-ion power, you know, tools, wireless tools, they're willing to embrace those things if it improves, their productivity. So that's been the case here. We think nostalgia, there's a place that, we're proud of our heritage, but we don't want to be trapped by it. So whether you're doing F-150, Mustang, or the new Bronco that we're going to be launching next week, we don't want, we want to honor the past, but we're not museum curators at the same time. We want to make sure we're moving and embracing technology.
Hal, let's talk about something decidedly non-technical on the truck. 11 different radiator grills. This is an industry that's always trying to reduce complexity in the plants and get things down the line, move the product down the line, assembly line much more efficiently. But clearly you guys see a need, I guess a marketing need, to actually tool up 11 different grills on that truck. And boy, pickups, U.S. pickups have got to have the highest build complexity of any product. I guess it doesn't matter. As long as the customer is willing to pay for it, complexity doesn't matter.
There's an element of that. We shouldn't lose sight of how many of these trucks we sell, right? So it's one thing to talk about complexity on a niche vehicle where you're selling 60,000 of them, but we're selling upwards of 700,000 a year. So we can afford a bit of complexity. Having said that, my other job is purchasing and procurement. So I'm very sensitive to what that does, not only for Ford, but also our suppliers. So the way we've approached it, John, is we try to understand, even though the part looks different, can you build it in the same way? So in the assembly process at the plant, working with Gary Johnson and our manufacturing team, is we may have 11 different grills, but if they're assembled the same way, it doesn't drive a lot of complexity into his assembly process. Then we do the same with our suppliers. So the grills may look different, but if they can build it in the same injection molding tool, by just switching out the tool, but not the capital equipment, there's efficiencies there that we can reuse in terms of capital reuse. So that's the way we think about it. The F-150, we sell a lot of them. One of the success factors is the ability to customize and have the broad series offerings. So the grill is an example of one where we think it's good complexity, if you will. Mm-hmm. It makes good business sense.
Mm-hmm. Hal, where do you see, the last generation we discussed, the 2015 car, big leaps in that truck. First truck is aluminum. First truck where you really came in with the V6 as a volume engine as opposed to the V8. What do you expect is going to be the new feature in this car that people are going to adapt? Is it going to be the bigger screen? What do you think is going to define this truck?
I think it's the smart technologies, because it goes beyond just the truck itself. We talked about over the air how game changing that is, but it also requires the cloud infrastructure, the fact that we can now read data off of all of these modules and use that data to really understand how our customers are using the product to make the products better. To me, that's the game-changing thing, and that's the hard one to duplicate. In terms of a competitive advantage, because it goes beyond the truck. It's the electrical architecture. It's the cloud. The cloud infrastructure that's outside the vehicle, and then it's fundamentally changing the way you work in terms of how you're organizing the teams, because now you're doing these continuous updates to the vehicle, and managing that is a very different way of working.
How is this a generational thing that the new truck buyer has certain expectations that, say, the truck buyer of 2 generations ago wouldn't even occur to them that something like this would be part of a pickup truck?
I think it's a sign of the times. Everything in our lives, the rest of our lives, is connected. You can buy a $20 camera that also has a smoke detector, a carbon monoxide detector. You can talk to it, listen to it for $20. Put them up all around your house. I've done it, right? So, people, there's Ring doorbells, all sorts of examples. So the expectation now is, I want that capability in my vehicle. And if you don't have it, you're going to be a laggard. It'll be like, you going to a hotel that doesn't have Wi-Fi in it. You just would automatically cross it off the list. So we think it may be game changing today, but in a couple of years, it's going to be, the basic expectation.
Yeah. How the other thing that really changed since 2015, we're talking about these new players in the segment, but the other thing that really changed is the midsize segment. You guys initially just came out with the F-150. Your competitors said, we're going to go into the midsize segment with Canyon and Colorado. You guys have followed with Ford Ranger. How has the Ford Ranger and the midsize pickup changed your approach to the F-150, if at all?
Well, Ranger's doing really well, by the way. It's outselling the Colorado, and it's been a huge boon for us. Yeah, I think you guys heard us talk about. I want to just maybe make this point. Do you remember we made a decision to exit passenger cars in North America, and it was at the time there was a lot of debate about that. But if you look at the Michigan assembly plant, we were building the Focus and the C-Max. Now we're building the Ranger, and we're changing over to the Bronco. So next year, if you compare the profits of those two products, Ranger and Bronco, at the same plant versus when we were building Focus and C-Max, it's $1 billion improvement. $1 billion. It just shows you, why we made that decision and how important it is. But to your point, Henry, when we just had F-150, it was forced to straddle that bandwidth in the marketplace in terms of price point. Having the Ranger underpinning the F-150 allows us to really, be more focused in terms of catering to those full-size truck customers, and then, certainly reposition it up market, all the way up to our Raptor.
How have you guys been pleasantly surprised by that? Because, the market was screaming for a new Ranger for years, and Ford never delivered. And while nobody at the company would come out and say it, others would say it's because they're afraid of cannibalizing the F-150, which are the crown jewels. Looks like you had your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, you're right, and there was a bit of a consideration at the time, but when we switched over in 2014 calendar year with the 2015 model, it was significant. The vehicle physically got larger, certainly going to aluminum and all that technology. We repositioned it, and it was enabled by the Ranger, and there's very little cannibalization between the two products. So we're not surprised at how the product's doing, because the Ranger is, outside the North America, is a great selling product. And in many of the other markets, it is the full-size truck in those markets. So we knew we had a good product. It was just a question of what it would do to F-150, and it's done really well.
Hey, look, we've got more to get into. We got to take another quick break right now. We'll be back in just a moment. First, a shout out to our good friends at Bridgestone. All right, we're back. Gary, I know you were about to ask something.
Yeah, I wanted, to go to the point of the development of this F-150. And you touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the show, but I'd like to go a little deeper into this. And that is, when you were benchmarking competitive vehicles, were there things that surprised you that you saw coming from other companies? And whether the benchmarking was done of other pickup trucks, or maybe you were looking at SUVs, or I don't know. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, we all do a lot of benchmarking. I think the risk of being a market leader for so long is you can tend to rest on your laurels and become complacent. And we're very paranoid of, and have great respect for our competitors, because everybody wants to knock you off that platform. So certainly what we saw was, how good the interiors have gotten in the vehicle. And when you look at the price points of these trucks, they are luxury vehicles, right? So we saw that. We saw the success of RAM with the investment in the larger size screen, and so that was a good learning for us. And then we talked about the role of technology and, people like Tesla in terms of how game-changing that is. So all of those things, Gary, really influenced the way we approached this truck, and then where we decided to invest our resources and our money.
How, in fact, we got a question here from Dan Neal. Looking at the Tesla Cybertruck with its exoskeleton approach, have you guys taken a look at that? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think we call it a unitized body in our industry. Exoskeleton sounds sexier, but yeah.
Well, it seems to be more than unit body. It seems to carry much more of the structure in the skin of the vehicle.
Yeah, I don't know. I think certainly the body on frame construction has served us really well. It allows us to really have a lot of flexibility in terms of wheelbases and bed lengths, and that going back to some of the variety of offerings that we have. So that's difficult to do with that type of an architecture, and you can only have basically one wheelbase and one bed length, and that's so you guys know we have a regular cab, a super cab, a crew cab. You can get multiple bed combinations. All of those things are the enablers for us to do so well in the marketplace. And going to that architecture, that would be one of the major considerations for us.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Well,
So in other words, they can make one size basically, and you guys can flex that to meet the demands of the market.
Yeah.
I think, Hal, another reason the electric company like Tesla likes that design is you can put big batteries underneath that, right? You got that whole space now underneath with an exoskeleton where you can put in big batteries. You were talking earlier about the advantage of a hybrid giving you 700 miles of range. As you guys move toward an electric truck, we expect that's going to come out from you at some point. We're going to have Rivian and Tesla, Lordstown in the market. How much are customers telling you that electric range is an issue with pickup trucks? I mean, people are towing with these things, doing really battery hungry stuff. How feasible do you think it is to do an electric truck?
Yeah, no, it's certainly feasible, as evident by some of the other startups that you mentioned. I think range is a tricky one. It's one of those things where customers will tell you more is better, and this gets back to a little bit of you have to be careful of what customers tell you versus what they really do. So unlike having a large fuel tank, gas tank or a diesel, is that you burn that off as you're using it, so you don't incur the weight penalty throughout the life. So we know with our connected data that on average our customers drive about 17 miles a day. So when you ask them, they'll typically tell you they want 300 plus miles of range because that's what they're used to with their ICE vehicles. What they don't recognize is they're carrying those batteries, that mass, that physical size, that cost around all the time. And if they're only driving on average 17 miles a day, it's a bit of a, just in case, right? It's like my wife wants a double oven just in case we have 12 people over and need to cook 2 turkeys at the same time. That rarely ever happens, but you'll hear people talk about that scenario. And so Apple can make the iPhone last a week if they wanted to. We just wouldn't like to carry it around. So they've sized it so that it gets you through the day, and you plug it in at night, and then you're good to go the next day. So I think there's a bit of that. We're in that early phase where we have to be a bit careful, but we also are pragmatic. We know it's one of the few things you can point to. You can't talk about fuel economy with MPGs with battery electric vehicles. So range is one of the most tangible things you can point to as a differentiator. So we have to balance that with some of the other considerations that I've highlighted.
Going forward, do you see the market bifurcating that way? That you guys, a big part of that 900,000 in sales is fleets. Do you see the market bifurcating where the fleets, which don't necessarily need to do long range stuff, they all become electric, and then the customers who are towing, taking boats up north, doing all that range stuff, they'll buy hybrids?
I think we're already seeing some of that now. What's nice about fleets is they have typically commercial fleets have very predictable routes and mileage, so they know exactly what they need. They also are the first ones to benefit from the cost of ownership and the fuel savings. So we certainly see that as a ripe opportunity, and it's aligned with Ford's strengths. So that's an area that we really want to target.
How you mentioned in passing that you guys have a 3-liter diesel available for the new F-150. It surprises me a little bit that isn't talked about more. I mean, it's just like, yeah, we got one of those. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I think we're probably guilty of that. We have it. It's it's a customer want for a pocket of customers, and we need to do a better job of showcasing it. I'll take that back to my marketing colleagues.
Yeah, well, pickup buyers are the most loyal buyers in the business, and the ones who buy diesels are the most loyal of all.
Yeah.
See, but Henry used to be a diesel guy, and now Henry is talking all about Teslas. He doesn't even care about diesels anymore. I'm getting a little concerned about Henry here.
But Gary, you go to the track, and all the pickups there are diesel because they need this low end torque ability to tow stuff around, but they also want the range because all these guys are towing long distances. So I think that goes back to the battery question. Are you willing to pay a premium for diesel, which is stiff, $5,000 premium, or are you willing to pay a premium for electric? There are a lot of guys that haul that I'm with, they want the diesel. They get the low end torque like an electric, but they get the security of the long range stuff. I think diesel is a huge challenge to electric trucks.
Yeah. Hey, we've got another question here for you, Hal, from B. Wilson for Web. How do you handle the vehicle software? We talked all about over-the-air updates and all the connectivity and all the software that you're putting in there. Does Ford develop it in-house? Do you use outside contractors? How do you do all that?
We're doing it ourselves, John. We did something a while back that it may not have been widely publicized, but we did an acqui-hire when BlackBerry was having some challenges and revised their business model, where we basically hired about 600 software folks from BlackBerry, and most of them are based in Ontario, Canada. We found that it's always hard to recruit people from the West Coast to come to the Midwest, but it's easy to recruit people from Canada to Detroit because we're warmer and further west than Ottawa. So it's all kidding aside, it's been a great asset for us. So they're doing a lot of our software development. They're also engineering a lot in-house, a lot of the electrical modules that are in this next generation F-150. Yeah.
Hal, in terms of the bed, you guys, trucks in the end, that's what makes them unique as a bed. We've seen GMC do this wild multi-pro tailgate. You guys have done a little tinkering with the tailgate. Why not go to the multi-pro tailgate route?
Yeah, our customers really wanted productivity. So we talked earlier. John brought up using the tailgate as a workbench and a workstation. And really, we think that's the high value. We have the step feature that's in our tailgate. We'll offer a power tailgate as well, but we couldn't make the business case with some of the other options because there were some trade-off tails to it in terms of cost and weight. Hey guys, can I just one thing, we talked earlier about the technology and how it goes beyond just the truck, and one of the things I really want to highlight for our viewers is our Ford Pass app. is something that's really differentiates us. So with the new F-150, they're able to do the traditional things that you would expect, like be a remote start the vehicle, locate where the vehicle is. But they're also able to do really clever things, like if you hook up a trailer, you can do the trailer light check, right? You don't need to have your wife stand behind the tailgate. You can actually do that now through the phone on the FordPass app and stand behind the trailer and watch it. You can now also control the power of the onboard generator that we talked about. So if you're in the job site, you don't have to get back in the truck and start it up and those things. We have a trailer theft detection as well. So if you have a hooked up to your trailer, if somebody tries to disconnect it, the FordPass app will notify you. So just great examples of things that go beyond just the truck. It gets into, the app that's on your phone as well as the cloud.
To that point, sort of, how many of your customers truly use your truck as a tool, and how many of your customers basically buy it because it's a reliable vehicle?
I think, we have the professional truck folks that use it as a tool exclusively, but even the recreational truck owners will tell you they use it occasionally as a tool. I drive a Raptor, and for me, just to have it is helpful because whether
you like to go fast. Yeah, I know.
But just running to Lowe's and Home Depot to buy mulch. Last week I found on Facebook Marketplace, somebody in my neighborhood was giving away free firewood. And being the frugal procurement professional that I am, I drove there, backed up into his yard, and loaded up, as much oak as I could carry into my truck. It's great. So those are all the reasons why people have a truck. So, so I think the ability to use it as a tool is something that's a key selling point.
Wow, free oak firewood. That's worth driving for.
I'm selective. I don't just take any free wood.
Hey, Hal, I know you've got a hard stop and we're reaching the top of the hour here. We're going to have to let you go. You do have a very busy job. You got two massive jobs. I mean, just PD alone or purchasing alone would be enough for anybody to do the two together. Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for your abilities there. But I also want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. We know how busy you are. Thank you so much for making the time available for us and our viewers.
Thank you, John. And make sure you tell my boss the next time you see him about the two jobs for the price of one.
I'll do that.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
See ya. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So very interesting. Gary, what first reaction, what do you think about the truck?
Well, I think it's interesting that, Hal made the point that they could have rested on their laurels. I mean, they're just selling so many of those things. It's year in, year out. And, it'd be easy to say, you know what? We know how to do trucks. We know what people want. Just we'll make another one. But for them to say, hey, let's step back. Let's do the benchmarking. Let's do some quick prototypes. Let's try to find ways and means to improve what we've been offering. I think that's just outstanding. So I think those guys are very serious about not letting that crown slip and do what it takes to make sure it's theirs.
Yeah.
I tell you, I think this segment is fascinating in terms of the electric piece, because trucks, like high-end luxury cars, are one place where you can put electrics and actually make the performance better. I'm fascinated by how they're using the hybrid to make this truck better. It's not just a fuel economy play. I really have my doubts about how electrics play in lower cost markets, but you get into these high cost markets like sports cars that hybridize, it makes them much faster. When you can bring batteries into trucks, you make their towing capability and their range better. And I'm fascinating watching Ford. To your point, Gary, I mean, they're sitting on top of the golden egg right now. But Nikolai Nikolai. Who's ever heard of that truck company? It hasn't produced a truck. It has, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a higher market value than Ford does.
They have a higher market value than anyone does.
Yeah, I mean,
No, Nikolai, Tesla does, not Nikola, but still, to your
Nikolai's
point,
market value is insane, right? And they haven't
it's over $20 billion. That's not as much as Ford, but still, to your point, they've never made anything, and they're getting this capitalization.
That's right. And I'm looking at this truck market, which is dominated by great legacy names, Chevy, Ford, Ram, and yet these competitors like Lordstown, Tesla, Nikolai are getting serious looks from investors because they're the new thing. And that's got to be a concern for these Detroit 3 companies.
Well, yeah, I mean, but, I thought Hal made a really good point. Body on frame. You can have all different kinds of different powertrains. You can have different wheelbases. You can have different cab sizes. You can have different bed sizes. The way those other electric trucks are being done, no can do at unless you want to spend a whole lot of money.
Well, but isn't Lordstown doing wheel motors?
It is hub motors, right?
Yeah. So if you do that, you can have all different sorts of sizes. But I mean, I think it gets back to the point that you made about Nikola. None of these guys have made anything yet. I mean, let's wait and see. And I mean, and I mean, just think of the the durability that these trucks need to have, day in, day out, day in, day out. I mean, because there are so many of these that are being used by contractors, and this isn't something that is just going to pick up some mulch. I mean, this is your livelihood. And, this is where I think that the traditional companies, while not as valued perhaps by investors who, wouldn't know a pickup truck if it ran them over, I don't think that they have an appreciation of, the hard work that these things need to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's incredible volume. I mean, John was talking about all the grills that they make available on this car just because they're serving that many customers. They can do that many variations within their 6 model trims. Yeah, it's a really interesting market right now. I got a couple neighbors, and one of them's a Ford guy, one of them's a Ram guy. Ford guy won't buy anything but Ford. Same with the Ram guy. I mean, there's intense customer loyalty, but I show both of them the Tesla Cybertruck, and they say, "Oh, that's kind of cool." I mean, these truck companies are coming in. Lordstown with this big fleet play. They're going to make a very serious cost case to big fleets that we're a lot cheaper because all you got to do is plug these things in to 10 cents an hour every night. And Tesla is coming in with this radically different design change. And Ford and GM and Ram make a lot of money up there at the King Ranch end, where people aren't buying these trucks for capability. They're buying them because look at me. And so there's a competitor at the high end and a competitor at the low end that I think are really serious challenges to these legacy companies.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I know for a fact GM, Ford, and Chrysler are very worried about these upstarts because they don't think that they're going to take over the market. But to your point, if they just nibble away at the edges, all of a sudden these pickups that have been so profitable are still going to be massively profitable, but not like they were before.
Yeah. I mean, this is what 40% of Ford's income. I mean, this is the franchise. So yeah, it's really interesting to watch. The other thing, and I'm interested in what you guys think of this. We spoke to Hal about it, but 5 years ago, that's virtually the product cycle of this truck. They didn't think there was a market for a mid-sized truck, right? They got into this game late because of what the competitors did. What happened there?
What was it that they didn't think there was a market for a mid-sized truck, or as John implied, did they not think that they wanted to give up any sales from an F-150 to a lower price vehicle? That's what I think the thing was.
Yeah, it was that. The fear was that you would have to make the little truck so big that it wasn't going to be that much smaller than an F-150, and it wasn't going to cost that much less. And so forget about it. We're not going to do it. And what changed everything is when General Motors decided, hey, we're going to do Colorado and Canyon. The Toyota Tacoma had always been out there, dominates the segment, even today. Their sales have gone up, by the way, with all this competition coming in, not down. You had the Nissan Frontier out there. It's kind of a marginal player. But, in this town, they all watch each other. GM watches Ford, watches Chrysler, and as soon as one of them makes a move on something, the other ones generally pounce. And so when GM moved with its mid-sized trucks, Ford felt it had to counter it. And I got to look up those numbers. That was interesting. Howe said that the Ranger's outselling the Chevy right now.
So what I want to know is, where's the Dakota?
Supposedly they're working on it.
Or is the Gladiator the Dakota?
Well, that was always the argument, that, we'll do a Jeep version, but we're not going to do a Dodge one or a Ram one, excuse me, because that's going to cannibalize Jeep. But, look right now, passenger cars are less than 25% market share in the U.S. market. What I'm saying now is passenger cars have gone the way of bell-bottom blue jeans and leisure seats. They've gone out of style. And that's opened up the segment for trucks even more than anybody would have thought, even just 5 years ago. 6 years ago, the Chevy Sonic, rated just recently by J.D. Power as the most high-quality car in the American market, they were selling 100,000 a year. 5-6 years ago. Last year, they did not even sell 14,000 of them. So, and it's obviously not a quality issue. The public just doesn't want cars like that, like they used to.
Well, so then we're talking about this potential penetration that electrics have in the full-size truck category. If people are looking for more SUVs and that's helping to drive the mid-size truck segment, then why isn't Honda making any sort of inroads with its unibody pickup? And what are the prospects for this new Hyundai unibody coming in?
Well, the Honda truck's a very nice truck. It's in its second generation. They learned a lot with the first generation. They fixed all their mistakes. It sells okay, but that's just it. And Honda's not even the good example. Look at Toyota and Nissan. Toyota's got a very good truck in the Tundra. It sells okay, but that's about it. The Nissan Titan has been an abject failure. There's no way they're going to keep that thing in the market. I just can't see with such low sales. There's something about, an F-150, a Silverado, a Ram. Like I said before, they are the most loyal buyers in the business. Henry, you mentioned one of your neighbors. Right. The guy who buys a Ford, he would never think of going out and looking at a Ram or a Chevy. That, to him, would be treason.
Yeah. But he kind of likes the looks of that Tesla. Maybe it's an American thing. I don't know. Maybe the Japanese, they've been awfully good at every segment in this market, from small cars to SUVs to luxury, and they can't crack the code, other than the Tacoma, on pickup. So yeah, it's a curious thing.
Okay, John. So you're interested in the Ranger versus Colorado. Yeah. So for the first half of this year, Ranger sold 45,988 units. Colorado, 41,273.
Wow. That's pretty big for Ford.
If you throw the Canyon in, however, the Canyon sales were 9,708. So combined, it beats the Ranger, but not individually.
And that's how GM should look at it, But still, for an individual nameplate to be late to the party, that just shows the power of the Ford brand and its dealers in the truck segment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, when you got 900,000 customers, or 1 million customers coming in the door, it makes it easier to say, somebody looked at the Ford F-150 and says, "Holy cow, that thing's big! I can't fit that in my garage." Well, let's come over here. Let me show you this Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be benefiting from F-150. They have to be complementing each other.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to me that Ford didn't see that market.
Well, look, we couldn't talk about the Bronco. How couldn't talk about it today because officially, it hasn't been released yet. But look how long the entire auto industry has let Jeep get away with murder. I mean, they have grown the size of that brand exponentially over the last 5-6 years. It makes boatloads of money. And I just stand in awe that no one's really gone after it. That's what the Bronco is really about. They're going after Jeep's throat. And when you look at GM's full-size utilities, Tahoe, Yukon, Suburban, Escalade, why did Ford let them get away with it for so long? I mean, that Arlington plant in Texas, most profitable plant in the world, and it wasn't until Ford finally put some real serious money and effort into the Expedition and Navigator that it's got some real life competition against GM, and it's worked out wonderfully for Ford. But again, the question is, why did it take them so long?
Well, the question is also, okay, if we said before that, one company pays attention to what the other company's doing, I mean, as you say, John, I mean, Jeep for how many years? And I mean, and so what does General Motors have? Is, the electric Hummer going to frighten people in Auburn Hills? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, and that was Hummer's, mission back when it first came out, was to go after Jeep.
But the electric thing, I mean, Henry will certainly want one, but
I don't know. I think he's going to go for a Cybertruck.
But
he'll get a Hummer to pull it.
The other thing, though, that always interests me in this town is that these companies have a lot of brands under one umbrella. And it seems to me, I love Cadillacs, for example. I was just driving the new CT4V, wonderful car. But the poor thing, they have to go up against BMW and Mercedes, and that's all those companies do. It seems to me Cadillac, every go round, they have to go in and fight for budget with all the other brands in that stable. And, and it strikes me as the same thing looking at competing against the Jeep Wrangler. I mean, the Jeep Wrangler is the icon of Jeep. That's the F-150 of that company. That's the icon. So it defines that whole brand. Whereas, Ford and GM have to make all this other stuff.
Well, don't forget FCA, they got a bunch of brands under one roof. And I would argue they have starved Dodge and Chrysler brands to feed Alfa Romeo and Maserati. And it hasn't worked.
Yeah. But the money's in Jeep and Ram, and they know that, and that's where they put their money. So, Ford with the Bronco seems to be kind of coming around to that Wrangler, brand strategy, because now they're going all SUV. But as long as they were building, sedans and trucks, it seems to me harder for them to make a Bronco case. Now it's easier. That's all they do.
Yeah.
So Henry, to your point about, the other brands fighting, like Cadillac fighting for a piece of the pie. So I was looking at some numbers for a thing that I wrote. And so for the first half of 2020, Jeep brand overall sold 359,386 units. If you combine Buick, Cadillac, and GMC, for the first half of the year, they sold 343,485 units, meaning Jeep outsold those three brands. So yeah. I'm thinking, if I'm at General Motors and I'm saying, who do I give money to? Chevy. It's just, because there's, it's just incredible that Jeep is such a powerful brand.
Yeah, and I got to believe, Ford's launching with a 2-door and a 4-door that go right up against Wrangler. They've got this Bronco Sport that's aimed at the Cherokee. I'll bet there's more in the pipeline. I provided that the first effort, the first two Broncos come out and sell well, There's going to be money in the PD department to broaden out the lineup of Bronco.
So what does General Motors do?
It's going to have to do something.
What do you think, Henry?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, look at where GM's money's going. I mean, making Cadillac an electric brand, that's a lot of money to put in there. So, like I say, all these companies, they have multiple brands they got to make decisions on, and I think that's where they're doing it. That's what makes this industry so cool, is you have all these different, and we're talking today in 2020, like FCA is brilliant. Well, they're brilliant because this guy Marchione got together with Manley and said, Jeep, baby, we're going to make Jeep the brand, and it absolutely met. It absolutely segued with the national appetite for SUVs. 15 years ago, Jeep was another brand. Now it's the full-size SUV brand everybody envies, because you had two brilliant minds that came together in the midst of a recession.
And I give a lot of credit to the designers and the engineers. They're damn good vehicles.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's all about our guy Mark Allen, who has been on the show many times, and it's all thanks to him for designing those things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're going to have to wrap this up. But Henry, always good to have you on the show.
Oh, you guys are great to have me. Oh, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Henry.
Yeah.
See you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. And we'll just keep on doing this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And thanks to you all who have tuned in to watch.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, your journey, our passion. And by BorgWarner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.